Para la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, lo más importante es su seguridad. A continuación, le presentamos el protocolo que se debe seguir ante cualquier situación de emergencia. Identifique a los brigadistas o coordinadores de evacuación del área donde se encuentre. Ante la alerta, debe prestar mucha atención a las indicaciones que ellos les den. Una vez escuchada la alarma, debe iniciar la evacuación, según las orientaciones del brigadista o coordinador de evacuación. Conserve la calma e identifique las salidas de emergencias que se encuentran ubicadas en los diferentes puntos del campus universitario. Salga inmediatamente de donde esté. No se devuelva por ningún motivo. Siga las indicaciones del brigadista o coordinador de evacuación. En caso de humo, desplácese a ras de piso. En caso de sismo, aléjese de lámparas, ventanas, ductos de aire, estanterías, bibliotecas modulares y en general de cualquier objeto que pueda caerse. Siga las rutas de evacuación señaladas con flechas verdes que están ubicadas en todo el campus universitario. Utilice siempre las escaleras, no use los ascensores. Diríjase al punto de encuentro que le indiquen los brigadistas o coordinadores de evacuación. En el campus contamos con 2 puntos de encuentro, uno ubicado en el parqueadero y el otro en las zonas de las canchas. Estos se encuentran debidamente señalizados. Tenga en cuenta, la brigada de emergencia de la universidad se encuentra identificada con chaleco color naranja y los brigadistas y coordinadores de evacuación se identifican con chaleco y paleta color verde. En nuestra universidad velamos por la seguridad de todos.
Invitamos a todos los asistentes a configurar sus teléfonos en modo silencioso para el éxito de este importante evento. Sean todos bienvenidos al auditorio de la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. Nos encontramos en este recinto para llevar a cabo la versión número 23 del Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría en estado sólido. La Universidad de Córdoba la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia y la Universidad Pedagógica y Tecnológica de Colombia, al igual que la Sociedad Mexicana de Irradiación y Dosimetría, le da la cordial bienvenida a este importante evento. Saludamos a todos los asistentes que se encuentran de manera remota, virtual, en la plataforma de Zoom, al igual que todos los asistentes que se encuentran aquí presentes, estudiantes, docentes, investigadores. Un fuerte aplauso de bienvenida. Me permito vincular al asistente internacional Daniela Escobar, quien nos va a acompañar en la traducción de este importante evento.
Hi, everyone. We are gathered here today for the symposium. Hi, everyone. We are gathered here today for the symposium. We welcome you. We invite you to please turn off your cell phones so that we can all hear each other clearly. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I am the international assistant, Daniela Escobar, who will be helping to translate.
A continuación, me permito presentar a la mesa principal, que se encuentra integrada por el rector de la Universidad de Córdoba y presidente del Sistema Universitario Estatal a nivel Caribe y a nivel nacional, el doctor Jairo Miguel Torres Oviedo. También nos acompaña el representante de la Sociedad Mexicana de Irradiación y Dosimetría, el doctor Juan Azorín Nieto. También nos acompaña el doctor Francisco José Torres Hoyos, coordinador del comité organizador. También nos acompaña la doctora Marvin Luis Pérez Cabrera, jefe del programa de Ingeniería de Sistema. También nos acompaña la doctora Aura Esther Castillo Lozano, subdirectora académica y de proyección institucional, al igual que también está con nosotros el jefe del Departamento de Física de la Universidad de Córdoba, el doctor Luis Alcalá. Para dar inicio, los invitamos a ponernos de pie para entonar las notas del Himno Nacional de la República de Colombia y el himno de la Universidad de Córdoba.
We would like to present our main table. First, we have Jairo Miguel Torres Oviedo, who is the rector for Universidad de Córdoba. We then have the representative of the Mexican Society for Eradication and Dosimetry, Juan Azorín Nieto. Also, Davis Enrique Lujuan Renes, Vice Chancellor of Research. Nini Paola Rojas Duran, the Deputy Director for Institutional and Financial Development. Francisco José Torres Hoyos, the coordinator for organizing ISSD committee. Marvin Luis Pérez Cabrera, the boss for system engineering program, and Aura Esther Castillo Lozano, the deputy director for academia and institutional projection. And we now invite you to please stand for the national anthem.
Himno Nacional de la República de Colombia. Himno de nuestra alma mater, la Universidad de Córdoba.
Alma mater cordobesa, faro de luz, tú iluminas con gran fuerza de la patria el cielo azul, donde llegan tus destellos, todo cambia de verdad, dando a Córdoba con ellos gran prestigio nacional, como el agua de la fuente, al siervo apagas la sed, tú mitigas en tu gente esas ansias de aprender, alma mater cordobesa, Unicórdoba de luz, tú iluminas con gran fuerza de la patria el cielo azul, donde llegan tus destellos, todo cambia de verdad, dando a Córdoba con ellos gran prestigio nacional. Unicórdoba, tú eres grande y nos haces mucho honor. A Dios pedimos te guarde para el bien de la nación. Alma mater cordobesa, Unicórdoba de luz, tú iluminas con gran fuerza de la patria el cielo azul, donde llegan tus destellos, todo cambia de verdad, dando a Córdoba con ellos gran prestigio nacional.
Muchísimas gracias. Pueden sentarse. Reiteramos el saludo muy cordial a todos los asistentes que se encuentran virtual en la plataforma Zoom, donde llega nuestra señal de este importante evento, el número 23, Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría en estado sólido. A continuación, vamos a invitar al rector de la Universidad de Córdoba y presidente del Sistema Universitario Estatal a nivel Caribe y a nivel nacional, el doctor Jairo Miguel Torres Oviedo.
We would now like to give a very cordial welcome to our symposium, our 23rd symposium. We are now going to welcome Jairo Miguel Torres Oviedo, the director of Unicórdoba, to speak.
Muy buenos días a todos. Reciban un cordial saludo. Agradecimientos a la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, a la doctora Aura, a todo el equipo directivo por hacer posible este espacio que nos convoca en el día de hoy. De la misma manera, al comité organizador, al profesor Francisco Torres, a todo su equipo, por hacer posible esta iniciativa, que aún recuerdo hace ya muchos meses atrás, cuando propusieron la organización de este Simposio Internacional de Dosimetría de Estados Sólidos. El profesor Francisco llegó con un grupo de estudiantes y de inmediato le manifesté toda la disposición a que este evento se realizara, porque esto está en sintonía con lo que hemos venido proponiendo, una universidad que dialogue y que delibere los asuntos de la ciencia, siempre en función de buscar alternativas que permitan implementaciones para transformar la realidad. De la misma manera, saludar a todos los conferencistas internacionales que están invitados, al doctor David Brandley de Reino Unido, al doctor Héctor René Vega de México, a Richard Hustenberg, a Pedro González de México, a Silvia Hidalgo de México, a Juan Azorín de México, a Sergei Bedenko de Rusia, a Eduardo Gallego Díaz de España, a Mayen Candré de Malasia y a Marco de Souza Lacerda de Brasil. Es decir, un evento internacional que convoca a investigadores y estudiosos de estos temas de distintas nacionalidades, que le van a permitir a ustedes, estudiantes, profesores, durante todos estos días, pues conocer, compartir experiencias, escuchar estos saberes que indiscutiblemente van a fortalecer el ejercicio académico que hemos venido haciendo en la Universidad de Córdoba en el área de las ciencias físicas. Y quisiera aprovechar este escenario que lo realizamos aquí en la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, la universidad con la cual tenemos un gran vínculo. En lo personal, esta fue también mi casa de estudio. Aquí duré un tiempo laborando como profesor y como investigador, antes pues de ir a la responsabilidad y al rol que hoy tengo. Así que con esta universidad hay un vínculo y hay un sentimiento muy particular de afecto, de consideración, y que hoy tengamos la oportunidad de realizar este evento aquí, pues reafirma ese vínculo. Lo que hemos tratado de hacer en la Universidad de Córdoba es un mensaje recurrente que señalamos, y es que cuando uno mira hoy la universidad como institución en el mundo, hay una serie de tendencias y de planteamientos teóricos que insisten en que frente a todas estas crisis globales que se están dando hoy en el mundo, donde se habla ya de un cambio de época, se dice que en el caso de América Latina, la única institución que puede hacer posible que las sociedades latinoamericanas no se degraden son las universidades. O sea, es en la universidad donde está, digamos, la razón esencial que puede permitir, impedir, pues, que estas crisis globales y estas crisis que se están haciendo cíclicas y repetitivas continúen. Porque la universidad significa eso: ciencia, saber, conocimiento. Esa es la esencia de la universidad. Y en consecuencia, como esa es la esencia de la universidad tiene que estar en un diálogo permanente. Sus saberes y sus ciencias tienen que estar dialogando. Y dialogando para poder integrarse cada vez más a la sociedad, para darle respuestas a la sociedad. Y darle respuestas precisamente alrededor de esas crisis. Darle respuesta precisamente a esas problemáticas. Y eso es lo que necesitamos. De ahí entonces el liderazgo de la universidad. Necesitamos una universidad que sea líder en ese sentido. Y cuando hablo de ese liderazgo, me refiero a un liderazgo generalizado, integral, no un liderazgo escueto o marginal o parcializado, sino un liderazgo que integre cada vez más la universidad a la sociedad. Así que un evento como esto, de esta talla, que es un evento de talla internacional, donde hay profesores, investigadores internacionales que concurren a este escenario, pues a hablar sobre estas temáticas, a compartir experiencias, a generar un diálogo científico, pues eso debe generar precisamente esa responsabilidad y ese compromiso por integrar estos espacios, lo que en estos espacios se comparte, el saber que estos espacios generan a lo que la sociedad demanda y necesita. Es allí donde la universidad se realiza. Por eso es el soporte esencial hoy que tienen las sociedades, son las universidades. Por supuesto, también agradecer al profesor Francisco Torres y a todo su equipo, pues, que ha hecho posible esto. Estos no son eventos que se organizan de un momento a otro, son procesos que requieren tiempo, dedicación, esfuerzo. Convocar en este escenario a estos profesores internacionales no ha sido una tarea fácil. Así que todo el reconocimiento, profesor Francisco, a usted y a su equipo por hacer posible esto, por integrar aquí a nuestros estudiantes, tanto estudiantes de la Universidad de Córdoba como estudiantes de la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, esa relación interinstitucional muy importante que hoy nos convoca y nos asiste aquí. De la misma manera, la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia por apoyarnos, por hacer posible esto, igualmente a los profesores internacionales que han hecho un esfuerzo desde sus países para venir y estar aquí con nosotros durante todos estos días, y a los estudiantes decirles que estos son los espacios que reafirman, refuerzan todo un proceso formativo. Muchas veces tenemos la idea que nuestra formación se circunscribe al espacio del aula de clase. Resulta que estos espacios que uno podría llamar extracurriculares son un complemento a ese ejercicio diario. Así que sáquenle el mayor provecho posible a este evento, porque sé que va a contribuir a reforzar, profundizar en estas áreas del conocimiento. Así que muchas gracias a todos y nuevamente repito, la Universidad de Córdoba reafirma su liderazgo y su compromiso alrededor de todas estas iniciativas. Muchas gracias.
La anterior fue la intervención del rector de la Universidad de Córdoba y presidente del Sistema Universitario Estatal a nivel Caribe y a nivel nacional, el doctor Jairo Miguel Torres Oviedo. De igual forma, vamos a invitar al doctor Juan Azorín Nieto, profesor investigador del Departamento de Física de la Universidad Autónoma en México. Un fuerte aplauso para él. Bienvenido a la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, este importante evento en alianza con la Universidad de Córdoba y la Universidad Tecnológica de Colombia, UPTC. Bienvenido a Colombia.
Muy buenos días, integrantes del Presidium, jóvenes estudiantes, profesores, señoras, señores. Es para mí motivo de gran satisfacción dirigirme a ustedes en representación de la Sociedad Mexicana de Irradiación y Dosimetría, para agradecer a las autoridades de la Universidad de Córdoba, representadas por su rector, el doctor Torres Oviedo, por abrirnos las puertas de este recinto y brindarnos su apoyo decidido para la realización del 23º Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría de estado sólido. Y agradecer la respuesta oportuna y el apoyo decidido de todos los miembros de la comunidad científica que acudieron al llamado de la convocatoria para la realización de este evento, que en esta ocasión rinde un merecido homenaje al profesor David Bradley en reconocimiento a su valiosa contribución científica en el campo de la dosimetría de estado sólido. Como ustedes saben, el principal objetivo de este evento es crear un foro de discusión de los avances recientes en los diversos temas relacionados con la dosimetría de estado sólido y sus aplicaciones, y compartir información actualizada sobre estos temas entre destacados científicos de todo el mundo, enriqueciendo el grado de experiencia y conocimiento de quienes trabajan en estas disciplinas y, lo más importante, entrenando a los jóvenes científicos interesados en estos temas mediante la inclusión de estudiantes de las diversas carreras relacionadas con la dosimetría de estado sólido, tanto en los cursos previos como en el simposio mismo. Esta serie de simposios se ha caracterizado por incluir como conferencistas invitados a los más destacados científicos que trabajan en el campo de la dosimetría de estado sólido en diferentes países. Por mencionar solo a algunos de ellos, el profesor John Cameron de Estados Unidos, Tadeusz Niewiadomski de Polonia, Claudio Fureta de Italia, Stephen McKeever también de Estados Unidos, Shigeo Watanabe de Brasil, Yigal Horowitz y Reuben Hen de Israel, y por supuesto quienes siempre nos han acompañado desde hace varios años, el homenajeado David Bradley y Richard Huchtenburg del Reino Unido. En esta ocasión, el evento es organizado conjuntamente por la Universidad de Córdoba, la Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana de México y la Sociedad Mexicana de Irradiación y Dosimetría, instituciones a las que agradecemos su participación. En este 23º simposio se cuenta con la participación de destacados conferencistas invitados de todo el mundo, así como de 160 trabajos de investigación sometidos a la aprobación del comité científico y que serán presentados en sesiones presenciales y en la modalidad virtual. Debo hacer énfasis en que una selección de los trabajos presentados en este evento serán publicados en un número especial de la revista Applied Radiation and Isotopes, igual que en años anteriores. Finalmente, quiero desearles el mejor de los éxitos, tanto en el desarrollo de este simposio como durante su vida profesional. Muchas gracias.
It brings me great satisfaction to welcome you, both the people speaking and the students. I am representing the Mexican Society of Eradication Dosimetry, and I would also like to thank La Universidad de Córdoba, who put together this event. It is opening the doors for a place where we can talk to each other and where we can grow to each other. I would also like to give thanks for the opportunity to be here and to all the members of the community, of the scientific community. It is our principal objective for this event to create a place of discussion where we can advance all the diverse topics that are with this event. I would also like to give a big thank you to all the people that are joining us internationally, all the people that were mentioned, and give again a thank you to La Universidad Cooperativa and to La Universidad de Córdoba, and also the university in Mexico that focuses on eradication and dosimetry. And I am very excited for this 23rd International Symposium that focuses on dosimetry for solid state.
Muchísimas gracias a Daniela Escobar, asistente internacional. Agradecimiento mejor al doctor Juan Azorín Nieto por sus palabras de instalación. Un fuerte aplauso para él, que ha llegado de México precisamente a este importante evento. A continuación, invitamos al doctor Francisco José Torres Hoyos, docente titular del Departamento de Física de la Universidad de Córdoba, además docente e investigador. Un fuerte aplauso para él y bienvenido también. Palabras de apertura.
Gracias. Muy buenos días a todos y a todas, a la mesa directiva que nos acompañan en la mañana de hoy. El Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría del Estado Sólido se inició en el Instituto Nacional de Investigaciones Nucleares de México en el año de 1988, a modo de seminario sobre dosimetría de estado sólido. Después evolucionó a congreso hasta convertirse en lo que es hoy, el Simposio Internacional de Dosimetría del Estado Sólido, un evento de prestigio que ha contado con el auspicio de la Sociedad Mexicana de Irradiación y Dosimetría. Se ha desarrollado ininterrumpidamente por más de 2 décadas, 23 años en este momento. No solo a lo largo y ancho de México, sino también en otros países. Hoy Colombia se convierte en sede de este magno evento, el cual fue cedido a la Universidad de Córdoba para la realización de la versión 23, en colaboración con la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia y la Universidad Pedagógica y Tecnológica de Colombia. Investigadores e investigadoras, es para nosotros un honor servirles de anfitriones durante esta semana, que sea aprovechada al máximo por todas y todos los que están aquí presentes y los que están conectados a través de las plataformas digitales que hemos habilitado para tales fines. Bienvenidos a Montería, la perla del Cirú, con 32 grados de calor humano. Muchas gracias.
We welcome you here for the International Symposium for Dosimetry in its solid state, where it started in the National Institution for Investigations in Mexico in the year of 1988, where now it is bigger and it is international. It moved on to something bigger. We welcome you to Montería, and we are honored to host this here in la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. And we welcome you once again to the Pearl of the Sinu River, and for its 32 degrees Celsius, and it's very hot here.
La anterior fue la intervención del doctor Francisco José Torres Hoyos, docente titular del Departamento de Física y docente investigador de la Universidad de Córdoba. A continuación, invitamos a la doctora Aura Esther Castillo Lozano, subdirectora académica y de proyección institucional de la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia.
Muy buenos días. En nombre de la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia, Campus Montería, le damos a todos y todas un cálido saludo de bienvenida. Un respetable saludo a la honorable mesa principal, conformados por miembros activos de la Universidad de Córdoba, la Universidad Mexicana y la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. El doctor Jairo, que siempre será bienvenido a su casa, la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. De igual forma, la Universidad Autónoma de México, también hemos compartido escenarios anteriormente y siempre serán bienvenidos a la Universidad Cooperativa. Bienvenidos todos al 23º Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría en Estado Sólido 2023. Simposio que hace posible la Universidad de Córdoba, la Universidad Pedagógica y Tecnológica de Colombia y la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. De igual forma, la Sociedad Mexicana de Radiación y Dosimetría. En este campus, al ser una universidad multicampus, también presento el saludo de parte de la rectora nacional, la doctora Marixa Rondón Rangel. Aquí al campus Montería, que hoy los recibe de manera muy fraterna y cálida, coherentes con nuestro clima. De igual forma, aquí siéntanse siempre en casa. Nos unimos como Universidad Cooperativa a este reconocimiento por el gran aporte de los científicos, específicamente en lo que tiene que ver con el campo de la dosimetría, en el cual en este evento se destaca al señor Daniel Bradley. Como universidad celebramos que se propicien estos espacios donde expertos en una materia traten y discutan algo concreto sobre su especialidad al realizar este magno evento, este magno simposio. Exaltamos la labor de hombres y mujeres de ciencia al servicio de la humanidad. Infinitos agradecimientos, infinitas las mejores intenciones para ustedes, señores científicos, y también a los estudiantes que continúen con esa motivación, porque cada día necesitamos personas más educadas y aportándole al desarrollo y al bienestar de la humanidad. Se les desea a todos éxitos en esta jornada de trabajo, compartiendo e intercambiando conocimientos y experiencias, que sea un simposio memorable. Se agradece a los organizadores, doctor Francisco. Muchas gracias por hacer posible usted y su equipo de trabajo, profesores y estudiantes que han organizado con tanta dedicación y cuidado todo esto en momentos previos de tal forma de que se convierta en un simposio exitoso. Para todos y todas, siéntanse en casa. Nos honra su presencia. Cada espacio se ha organizado para ello. Un gran día y una hermosa semana siendo hoy lunes. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia y a este simposio número 23 en el año 2023. Muchas gracias y exitosa jornada.
We would like to welcome you once again to our symposium. We hope that this is a time where you can learn a lot from one another. We have a lot of scientific research that is grand. We thank you once again to la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia for allowing this symposium to take place. And we hope that you enjoy, that you grow from one another. And we wish you a lot of luck in future endeavors.
Agradecimientos a la doctora Aura Esther Castillo Lozano, su directora académica y de proyección institucional de la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. A continuación vamos a invitar a la estudiante María Cecilia Fernández, estudiante del programa de Física de la Universidad de Córdoba, porque vamos a rendir un importante homenaje en esta versión 23 de este importante evento al profesor David Bleiler. Así que vamos a darle un fuerte aplauso. Él se encuentra de manera remota, que el auditorio le brinde ese caluroso aplauso.
We would now like to welcome our student here. We will be giving an honorary gift to Professor David A. Brownlee, who has contributed a lot of invaluable stuff to the dosimetry of solid state. So please welcome our student.
Se dispone la estudiante María Cecilia Fernández, estudiante del programa de Física, haciéndole el homenaje a nuestro gran invitado en el día de hoy, que se encuentra de manera remota, el doctor David Bleiler. Un fuerte aplauso, reiteremos el aplauso para que lo escuchen. A nivel internacional se encuentra aquí presente. Es un cálido homenaje que le brinda la Universidad de Córdoba y los organizadores de este importante evento en su versión número 23. Del mismo modo, también queremos homenajear a nuestro invitado internacional, el doctor Juan Azorín y Nieto, quien es profesor e investigador del Departamento de Física de la Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana de México. Un fuerte aplauso para él. Bienvenido a Colombia. Nos complace mucho tenerlo aquí presente y darle esta cálida bienvenida y este homenaje muy sencillo pero solemne por parte de la organización de este importante evento.
We would also like to give a very welcoming gift to Juan Azorina, our Mexican representative. Thank you for everything that you do, and we are so glad to present you with this gift.
Un fuerte aplauso para estos homenajeados. Invitamos a la mesa principal que sigue allí, ya está en su puesto. Vamos a entregarles una muestra cultural del área de la Universidad de Córdoba para dar inicio a inauguración con la cultura vernácula del departamento de Córdoba y de la costa norte colombiana. Así vamos a recibirlo con un fuerte aplauso de apertura a estos artistas de la Universidad de Córdoba en el marco de esta inauguración de este importante evento en su versión número 23.
We would like to show you a little bit about our culture in Córdoba. So here we welcome these students who are going to show you a bit about us.
Orgullo de nuestro folclore, que en el mundo se destacó
por ser bella y soberana,
del indio la nobleza
y del negro la fortaleza,
que enriquece nuestro folclore, que suene nuestra cumbia colombiana.
Irradiación y Dosimetría. También se encontró con nosotros el doctor Francisco José Torres Hoyo, coordinador del comité organizador, al igual que la doctora Nini Paola Rojas Durán, subdirectora de Desarrollo Institucional y Financiero. También se encuentra con nosotros en la mesa principal Marvin Luis Pérez Cabrera, jefe del programa de Ingeniería de Sistema, al igual que la doctora Aura Esther Castillo Lozano, subdirectora académica y de Provisión Institucional, y obviamente también está con nosotros el jefe del Departamento de Física de la Universidad de Córdoba, el doctor Luis Alcalá. Un fuerte aplauso para la mesa principal que estuvo aquí presente en la inauguración de este importante evento como autoridades académicas. A continuación, vamos a darle paso al ciclo de conferencias en el marco de la versión número 23 del Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría en estado sólido. Vamos a conectar con el doctor David Bleiler, quien se encuentra de manera remota y va a tener la posibilidad de indicar su primera conferencia considerada Evaluaciones de dosis cutáneas utilizando finas capas de grafito. Bienvenido, doctor, a este importante evento, el número 23, Simposio Internacional sobre Dosimetría en estado sólido. Agradecimientos también a la Oficina de Comunicaciones que hizo presencia, la Oficina de Comunicaciones de la Universidad de Córdoba, que hizo presencia en este importante evento. Los dejamos con esta conferencia.
Can we please confirm that Dr. David Broadley is online?
Yes, I'm online. Thank you very much.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Should I start?
Give me 1 second to confirm, please.
Okay.
Que si quiere que empiece. Por cierto. María de que si quiere que empiece. Sí, ya.
Yes, Dr. Bradley, you can begin.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation?
Un ratico hasta las 2. Un ratico en español. Claro, pero excelente.
Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to give this first presentation of the conference. I feel very humbled by this. I must apologize right at the beginning. I know it's going to be problematic for many that I speak only in English. I ask for your forgiveness. I would like to thank the organizers of this wonderful conference at the Universidad de Córdoba in Monterrey. Thank you so much. I thank Professor Juan Azun Nieto, who I've known now for many years, and he had welcomed me to participate in this wonderful series of conferences for many years now. And I've been grateful that I've been allowed to come to Mexico and to the Dominican Republic, and I am sorry that I'm not there to be with you in Monterrey today. I should tell you that it's just before midnight here in Malaysia. That tells you that we are 13 hours ahead of you, and that also shows you why it's rather difficult for me to travel all that distance to Colombia. But I really regret not being there. I also thank Professor Martinez, also my good friend, Professor Hector Rene Vega Carrillo, Professor Francisco Torres Hoyos, and also to Maria Cecilia Fernandez Leon for helping me to be able to present this by online. I'm going to talk about something that is not often talked about, or strangely. It's about skin dose evaluations using graphite. But before I get into that, this is the campus of the Sunway University just outside of Kuala Lumpur, which is where I'm living right now. And it's a university that's less than 20 years old. It was a former tin mining area, and you can see that that big pond there is the remnants of a tin mining excavation. And all around it are the university campus. It's around about 10,000 students that are hosted at this university. And it's a private university. It's growing very, very rapidly. But let me first of all tell you a little bit about my passion before I get into the discussion of the skin dose. Just hold on a moment. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about this society that I participated in forming in 1982. I was fortunate enough to meet people like John Hubble. I'm sure you all know his name. And he's no longer with us, but every one of you who uses X-ray attenuation cross-sections will know of John Hubble. And he was the editor of this National Bureau of Standards, which is now called the National Institutes for Standard and Technology, just outside of Washington, D.C. And he was generous enough to cover the first conference of what was to become the International Radiation Physics Society when they held their first meeting in 1974 in Calcutta, together with the person who was to be my PhD supervisor, Professor Ananda Mohan Ghose. And then I was in Penang, which is an island just off the coast of Malaysia, in 1982 when we started to form the organization called the International Radiation Physics Society. And you can see that since then, every 3 years, from then onwards, 1982, 1985, we were in Italy, then we were in Brazil, then we were in Dubrovnik, then we were in Rabat in Morocco, then in Jaipur in India. And I think it was around about the year 2000 that I first met Professor Wan Azharin Nieto. And by the way, I also say hello to Mrs. Wan Azharin Nieto. I see that she's in the audience. And I think I saw Professor Wan Azharin from then onwards in 2003 and 2006 in Coimbra. And you can see that what we tried to do in our International Radiation Physics Society is to truly be international. So you can see that we've spread ourselves across the world, from Sao Paulo through to India, through to Australia, and then back to Brazil again in 2012, and then China, and in Córdoba, but not Córdoba in Colombia, but Córdoba in Argentina in 2018. And then the last meeting was in Kuala Lumpur, where I am right now, in 2021. And in 2024, next year, we will have the 16th International Symposium on Radiation Physics in Lisbon. And I hope that many of you can make it to that meeting. But the International Radiation Physics Society, and by the way, you can just type in NBS Special Publication 461, and you'll get the whole of this by just Googling it. You'll get the whole of the proceedings to see what happened in 1974 and where we've gotten to since then. But so this was the conference that I helped to host in Kuala Lumpur, the 15th International Symposium, and it was in November 2022. And the special issue of that was covered in the journal Radiation Physics and Chemistry, which is the sister journal of Applied Radiation Isotopes that carries the proceedings of the ISSSD meetings, together with Professor Richard Houtenberg. And so we also formed another, since then, we formed another 3 conference series. There's another one called Industrial Radiation, Radioisotopes, Measurements and Applications. And this was an American organization. So the first several of these meetings were all held in North Carolina. And then it was decided that they should alternate with Europe. So the IRMA 7 took place in 2008. Then we were back into the United States in 2011. Then we were in Valencia in Spain in 2014, Chicago in 2017. And just this last several months, we've been in Bologna. And the next one will be in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia in January 2025. January because it's rather cool and a very pleasant climate in January in Riyadh. Earlier on, I heard that it was hot in Colombia right now, but here in Malaysia, we also have a hot climate. It's around about 28 degrees now in the midnight, but in the daytime it'll get to about 35 degrees. And then we also have another conference series. It's called International Conference on Dosimetry and its Applications. And the first one was in Prague. And the second one was in Surrey in the United Kingdom. And then in 2019 was in Lisbon. And in next month will be in Valencia in Spain, the ICDA 4. And we also have these regional series. So the first one of these regional series called IFARP, International Forum on Advances in Radiation Physics. The first one was held in Buenos Aires, and it was called FRUMBA, Forum in Buenos Aires, and we call it IFARP 1. Then in Kuala Lumpur in 2019, then a mixture between Melbourne and Kuala Lumpur in 2020, and then in Riyadh in 2022, and was held this last year in Kuala Lumpur again. So that's the International Radiation Physics Society, and we've been doing our very best to try and spread information on radiation physics and its peaceful applications ever since then. But alongside this have been this wonderful series of ISSSD that in which Professor Juan Azaran Nieto has worked tirelessly. And this is an amazing conference because you can see ours, the International Radiation Physics Society, we hold these meetings every 3 years. Professor Juan has been holding his conference every year, including through the whole of the COVID period of time. And all of these were held online in an amazing way. So really, I thank Professor Juan immensely for all his efforts. I also want to thank Professor Juan for mentioning that before myself having this opportunity, we had in previous years hosted John Cameron, Professor Horowitz, Claudio Porretta from the University of Rome, and last year itself, Professor Juan Azaran Nieto. I also thank the conference organizers for this wonderful plaque that you've just shown me online. I'm really looking forward to receiving it eventually. Thank you very much for that. I now want to move on to the International Radiation Physics Society was formed by several people. There's this one lady, Daphne Jackson, who was the first professor of nuclear physics in the United Kingdom. She's no longer with us, unfortunately. And Professor Joseph Rotblat, who was a Nobel Prize winner, and here he is, but he didn't win his prize for nuclear physics. He won it for Peace Prize, the Peace Prize, because he worked tirelessly against the development of atomic weapons. And he was also one of my supervisors. I will just show you the past presidents, starting from Professor Iyengar in 1985, through to Dan Benenson from Argentina. Professor Iyengar took two periods, John Hubble, Vikas Sina from India, and then through to Malcolm Cooper, Richard Pratt, Dudley Cray, Odaya Gonzalez, who sadly passed away just a few months ago he was at the University of Rio, Ladislav Musilek, Chris Chandler in Australia, and then myself from 2018 to 2021. And you'll notice something immediately. There's not a single female amongst all of these people. But now that's been put to right because here we are with Professor Isabel Lopes from Portugal, who is now the current president of the society. And here she is. This is Professor Lopes with all of these guys surrounding her. And in Valencia, we were to be hosted for the conference in Valencia next month by Professor Jose Rodenas Diago, but again, unfortunately, he died earlier this year. But anyway, that's the society, and I wish that you could all join it. It's very, very cheap to join it. It's just I don't know, maybe $20 for 3 years, something like that, and much less for students. And here's Richard Pratt that hosted me as a postdoc in the University of Pittsburgh, Professor Iyengar, who was the first president, Professor Gose, who was my PhD supervisor, and this is Professor Didier Isabel, was one of the conference, the committee who organized the first event of the International Radiation Physics Society. And this was in Sao Paulo in 1988. And here is a young David Bradley at that conference, and together with Ivan Nascimento, who was the organizer of that conference in Sao Paulo. What I wanted to show you here is that around that time, from 1985 or so, I'd been working on track detectors for using this LR115 as a fast neutron flux monitor. But I just wanted to show you something rather interesting, because these are alpha tracks in LR115 from monazite. So this is from the mining industry. And then this is showing you through the edge. I can just show you. So here we are looking at some tracks in with an electron microscope, showing them in large size. And we've taken a cut straight through these three and looked down the edge, and you can see the three tracks from here edgewise. This is a piece of polycarbonate that is just about 13 microns thick, and these tracks are going in about 2 microns only, which is a good example for why people will say that alpha emitters as an external source is harmless, because it can't get through the dead skin. And this links me to this discussion about the damage that radiation can do to skin. So in the case of alpha particles, it's only getting through to the first couple of microns of the skin. That's not what I'm concerned about here, but this material LR115 is about 33% carbon. And that's an important fact that I'm going to come on to now, because having shown an interest, and these are data that I showed in previous conferences in Mexico, and this was just using pencil lead, and we used the rotating pencil lead because it's graphite, and we looked at the dense damage that was done for various radiations. So these are 6 MeV electron exposures for various doses from 0 to 20 gray. And you can see here, this is a 0.3 millimeter diameter pencil. This is a 0.5 millimeter diameter pencil. Can you see that this is forming a pattern? This is 0.7 millimeter pencil, and this is 0.9 millimeter pencil. So why is it forming this pattern, which is rather curious? If I only showed this in a single event like this, you would not believe me. But these are all independent measurements. And what I've measured here is using a Raman microspectrometer, looking at the defect generation, called ID, over the graphite peak that you get in a Raman spectrometer, and looking at the ratio. And so you see this, first of all, this increase in damage, and then a decrease because there is internal annealing going on as you dump energy into the lead graphite material, and then the defect starts to dominate again, and then you start to see this annealing again occurring. And interestingly enough, if you take the surface area of each of these pencil leads per unit volume, you can see that the 0.3 millimeter has a surface area per unit volume of 13.7, And then for the next one, the 0.5 millimeter, 8.4. Then for the next one, the 0.7 millimeter diameter, 6.3. And for the 0.9 millimeter, 4.8. So what we're seeing here is that this is a surface effect. It's dominated by the surface, which gives us a clue that I want to use this to measure the dose inside skin, because it is a surface phenomena. And if you didn't think that what I'm showing you is truly believable, then this is the data of somebody else using 10 MeV electrons around about the same time, but I was not in touch with them. And you can see that they also are showing, but look at this. This is from 0 to 200 kilogray. And they're showing the same fluctuations. This is for graphite oxide, and this is for multi-wall carbon nanotubes. And you see the same sort of pattern and also the same range here. So that also gave me real confidence that this is truly a phenomenon that is reproducible. And something also very interesting that has caught my attention, that this is the first measurement. And this is a measurement 4 months later. And you can see that the defects created, the damage created is frozen in. It has not disappeared. It has not faded away. It is now frozen in. So it has a long lifetime, which is giving me a clue that perhaps I want to use this for dating, something that I'm going to come across, try and work on in the future. And then this is more recent even. This was earlier this year, using an ion beam, a 2 megavolt proton ion beam and a 500 kilovolt helium ion beam. And you'll see again that we're getting this same similar effect with 2 MeV protons, and also the beginning, at least, of 500 keV helium ions. We've not gone far enough to see it turning over. So it's a surface effect, and therefore we have real interest in trying to measure this for skin dose. So here's a 60 micron thick graphite sheet. Where do you get 60 micron thick graphite sheets from? They are used by the motor car industry for the electrodes inside the engine of a motor car. And because graphite remains intact up to very high temperatures, it can stand the temperatures inside a motor car engine. And you can get graphite of various thicknesses down to 20 microns and upwards from that. So we chose in this case 60 micron thick graphite sheets. This is a very important issue because here, now we did in scientific reports, we looked at hair and wondered whether we could use this as a biodosimeter. And so hair is around about 50% carbon. And you see again, using Raman microspectrometry, ID over IG, this defect peak over the graphite peak, you see again this same situation. And this is an expansion of this from 0 to 10 gray. So we know that we could probably use this as a biodosimeter in radiotherapy. And this was published in 2021 by the group I'm a member of. So now let us move then to skin dose evaluations. And why do I want to do it? Well, if you go back to the discovery of the X-ray, just after the discovery of the X-ray, Thomas Edison was making X-ray tubes in the United States. And he had a technician whose name was Clarence Daly, D-A-L-L-Y. And Clarence Daly, because nobody knew that X-rays were harmful, was testing each and every one of the X-ray tubes that they were making by putting his hand in front of the X-ray tube. Well, he didn't make it to 34 years of age, having first of all lost his left hand through the beginning of skin cancer, and then having to have it amputated. And then after his left hand had been amputated, he started to use his right hand. And within a couple of years, he had lost his life. So skin is a very sensitive medium to radiation, and the International Commission on Radiation Units and Measurements in their report number 39 recommend that you assess the skin dose at 70 microns depth. And the reason for that is because the dermal layer, first of all, you have the epidermal layer, then you have the dermal layer, which is just underlies it. And it's the dermal layer which is mitotically active, the area, the layer that produces new skin cells that then feed up to the surface of the skin to replace the old skin that is dying away. So it is that 70 microns that where you're seeing the only mitotically active, the only place where you're getting new cells being generated at around about 70 microns. But this quantification of surface dose for such media skin is highly challenging. So accurate skin dose is going to be a real big problem. And prior skin dose studies using TLDs have been fraught with problems because the thickness of these is from 125 microns, which is much greater than the dermal layer, through to 1 millimeter. So there are real problems in trying to use TLDs for such measurements. So we could try and use Monte Carlo simulations, but Monte Carlo simulations deal with perfect geometries, not the difficulties that you get with skin, which is a multi-layered material. So we therefore move towards these thin graphite foils. And as I showed you earlier on, my first measurements were 60 microns, which is quite close to what we're trying to do here with 70 microns depth. And there are some supporting references for this, but I'll hope that will be shared with you after the conference. So you can look at these graphite foils and you can buy them. And if you have plates, they're nice and regular. But as you make them thinner, you can see that they start to curve and they start to have air gaps. And you can see here, when you use really thin ones, they start to show a sort of crumpled nature. They are showing surface irregularities. So this in itself is a problem. What we first did was we tried to do this in the mammography dose range in superficial layers of the graphite medium. So this is our graphite sheet. It's not 1 gram per cm cubed, it's 1.7. And each of our graphite sheets were 50 microns thickness. So 10 layers is only 0.5 millimeter. No one has ever tried to measure 10 measurements in the first 0.5 millimeter of the surface of something that may look like skin. So we tried it in mammography. This is the mammography unit. The energy of that mammography unit was from 23 to 35 kV, and the doses that we gave were from 2.6 to 11 milligray. Central axis on the first layer of the graphite, and so this is it's a rhodium tube and a rhodium filter. So you can see this is the spectrum for rhodium from about 23 to 35. There's not much at 35, most of it's at 23. And this is the comparison with a molybdenum X-ray tube. And when we made the measurements, remember the first 10 layers is around about 0.5 millimeter. You can see that apart from the lowest dose, which is practically where the limit of detection is, that you start to see this slow decline in the dose for these medium. And that's very, very encouraging. And interestingly enough, the approximate range of 23 kV electrons, because electrons are the entity that gives rise to dose, the photons are the carrier. They create electrons through photoelectric effect and Compton scattering. And those electrons in soft tissue will only go around about 7 microns. So again, you can see that this is truly a surface effect that we're seeing, that the first 7 microns is practically where all of the electrons are stopped. And you can compare that against the X-ray mean free path at 23 kV, which is around about 1.6 centimeters for the first distance to an interaction. So it is this that we're interested in. It's the 7 microns. So the first layer is not giving you the dose at 70 microns, because that's only 7 microns. So you have to go to the second or the third layer to see what is the dose inside at 70 microns. And this is a 50 micron thick. So I forgot to mention this. I'm using thermoluminescence here, not the Raman microscope, Raman microspectrometry. So this is a 50 micron thick graphite foil glow curves, and this is the glow curves at radiotherapy energies from 5 gray to 20 gray. These, of course, have been smoothed. And actually, if we look at just taking a single piece of graphite and taking it from 50 microns through to 2 millimeter activated carbon beads, you can see that it is the 50 micron which is the most sensitive. This is nanocoulombs per milligray, and it's because it's a surface effect. The surface area per unit volume for this is 40.8 compared to a 0.5 millimeter graphite sheet, which is just 4.8. So this is the most sensitive of all the graphites that we've used. And if you normalize per unit millimeter, it becomes even more apparent per milligram per millimeter that the 50 micron graphite is really good. And the ones that are from 0.2 millimeters onwards are not at all good. So the first two, the 50 micron and the 100 micron, are pretty good. And it's really a very cheap system also. But we did try it with a linear accelerator using 6 megavolt photon beams. And now you can see that this is when we put, without bolus, we just put a stack of graphite layers, 10 in all, on top, compared to when we put bolus on there of 1.5 centimeters to give us the build-up. And the ranges now in graphite, and the reason I'm using 1.2 MeV electrons is because that's the mean energy of electrons from a 6 megavolt photon beam. So the range in graphite now of these electrons is not 7 microns, it's 3.8 millimeters. So it's going right through that layer of 0.5 millimeter. And you can compare it to the National Bureau of Standards. And this is this is John Hubble, the person I showed you right at the beginning. And from his tables, you can see the X-ray mean free path is 10.4 centimeters against the 3.8 millimeters for the electrons. And so this is without bolus, and you can see that this is the beginning of buildup at 10 gray, and this is at 2 gray. This is the TL response for these layers. The interesting thing is that, okay, I have mentioned that the first 2 or 3 points give us the dose in the first surface. But what is happening is that this is not rising fast enough. If we go quickly to looking at the depth using a water tank, and you know what the buildup is looking like, this is not growing fast enough. So where are the electrons being lost? And the same thing is true when you go to using the bolus and look after 1.5, after 15 millimeters, and it's falling, and it's not falling fast enough. Again, it is due to the loss of electrons. So where are the electrons being lost? So it's probably because of the air gap. So this is just looking at 2 different densities, by the way. So there's a small density effect, not very large. But if you start to put in different air thicknesses between each of the layers, so this is 50 micron, 100 micron, and so on, you start to see that there is a reduction in the dose range. So air is a part of the problem. Surface roughness is another part of the problem. And this is us using Monte Carlo to look at the effect of a 50 micron air gap between half of these 50 micron graphite layers. And you can see this is graphite with an air gap, and this is graphite without an air gap. So you can see that there's a huge amount of dose deposited as a result of the presence of an air gap. So air gap is a really big problem when you're using very penetrating radiations like 6 megavolt photons. I just want to point you to this point here. I'm almost at the end now, but these are graphite foil layers. And you can see that if you look at them in detail, as somebody else has done, as I show here, you can see that this air gap is not uniform, because when you have these very thin materials, they're not at all flat. And here's another one showing the same big problem here. The surface roughness is around about 10 microns, which is around about the range of these electrons and that we've been talking about. So we know that graphite is not flat, and the surface is not flat. It is not optically flat, which means nanometer levels. So this is through a microscope looking at the graphite. This is through a microscope looking at a microscope glass slide, which is optically flat, as it should be, because you mount your specimens on a glass slide and you don't want optical defects to be occurring. So interestingly enough, on this scale, if you used glass slides, and there aren't glass slides that are 50 microns thick, you can see this is a 1.2 millimeter glass slide. This is a 4 millimeter glass, this is a 1.2 millimeter glass slide. This is 3 millimeters and this is 4 millimeters. Again, the thinner the material, the greater the surface area per unit volume. That's why this is occurring. So had we had glass that was ultra thin, which we don't have, and therefore we can't do it, we cannot emulate the skin. But actually, interesting enough, that those people who do, and I'm about to finish, thank you, do electron therapy of skin, they actually don't try to measure the dose in the skin. They measure the dose in a treatment plane that just touches the first point on the skin surface. So my conclusion is that 50 micron graphite foil stacks do appear to be of utility in measuring dermal doses for mammography, with a range in soft tissue of these electrons of 7 micron. But for 6 megavolt photons, megavoltage X-rays, we have a big problem with these air gaps. So the issues of the stacked graphite layers for the radiotherapy area is an imperfect arrangement. Graphite air interfaces and surface roughnesses of a few microns are giving rise to substantial scattering, leading to electron losses. And that's where we've gotten to. It is not a perfect arrangement. We have not solved everything yet, but we're trying to do our best. And as I said here, when you look at your surroundings, look at it with the curiosity of a child and try to imagine what problems you're facing and what you might be able to do about it. This is another picture of our campus in Kuala Lumpur. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. I've completed my talk. I hope everyone's still there to hear me. Are you able to hear me?
Thank you, Mr. Bradley, for sharing your information.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to you to share your information. Here we are with the people in the auditory. So thank you again.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Should I stop sharing?
Yes, bye. Esa fue la presentación de Mr. Bradley, entonces espero haya sido de mucho interés. Salúdenlo, él los está viendo.
Thank
The
you,
people are saying,
Yes.
Bye, Mr. Bradley.
I envy you being in Colombia.
Yes.
Very sadly, I have been to numbers of countries in the Latin Americans, to Peru, to Ecuador, to Argentina, to Brazil, to Panama, to Mexico, but never to Colombia. So it is a real sadness that I'm not with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, all the people that are here are Colombian, so it's very interesting to hear your information.
Thank you so much, Professor Juan Asman. This is beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
To you. Bye, Mr. Bradley.
Okay, so it is now midnight here. I will rejoin again when Professor Shakadok gives a talk at 3:30 a.m. my time. Thank you so much.
To you. Thank you again.
Thank you. I will stop my video now.
Hello, Mr. Felipe.
Hello,
Hello, good morning.
good morning. Actually, here in Brazil, good afternoon.
In Brazil.
Yes, Rio de Janeiro.
Como vai você?
Eu estou bem, e você? Como está?
Muito bom.
Que bom, que bom.
Hum.
Eu estou um pouco nervoso, mas estou pronto para apresentar essa parte inicial do meu trabalho de doutorado.
You can show your slides, your presentation.
Let me see, because share screen.
You have the option to present.
First, I need to open my presentation.
Yes, to share.
Okay, opening. So, and then I need to return to Zoom.
Yes, share your screen.
Share screen.
Recording stopped.
Yes. We can see.
So okay. And now I can
You can start.
start. Okay. I have 15 minutes. It's right?
Put 2%, please. Then we can see in a big image.
Now it's okay.
Yes. Put presentate, please.
Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felipe Machado de Jesus from Brazil. I am a PhD student, and this is represent the first part of my PhD research. So, sorry?
Put the screen complete.
Complete.
Put presentate.
maybe I don't know how can I do
Slide
this.
full version, in a big version.
Felipe, if I can help you. Yes, this
Yes.
this is the button. Yes, yes. Press that button. The one you got your arrow on right now. Yeah, that's it. Press it.
That's it?
It should go, if you press on it, it should become a full screen.
Felipe?
Full screen.
Felipe,
Yes.
professora Thelma. Tudo
Oi,
bom?
Thelma. Tudo?
E aqui a gente precisa que você coloque no modo apresentação full na
Não, então,
tela. Porque aqui,
o único problema é que eu não estou sabendo como fazer isso.
how can... Aperta o F5 aí do seu teclado. Deixa eu ver.
F5.
Ou então vai em apresentação, full screen. Não? Let me see here.
Você diz eu indo no Zoom mesmo ou indo pelo PowerPoint?
No PowerPoint. Coloca
Então,
no PowerPoint a apresentação de slides. Lá em cima
eu
no
acho que é
menu.
porque tem alguma barra aberta aqui do Zoom que não está me permitindo estender mais a tela. Eu acho que é isso.
Então sai do modo apresentação.
Porque o PowerPoint está aberto, ó.
Mas ele está aberto, não está aberto full. A tela está pequena. Aperte sua tecla F5.
Continua pequena?
Sim. Para você está aparecendo a tela toda?
Para mim, sim.
Então tira o modo de apresentação do Zoom e entra de novo em modo de apresentação do Zoom. Para você pegar a
Tá,
tela correta. Você está compartilhando a tela errada. Ou você compartilha a sua tela toda do seu computador.
Tela toda do computador. Vamos ver se assim vai, então. Aprovar. Agora tá dando para ver a tela toda? And now. And now it's okay?
Yes, it's okay. You can start. Thanks, Philip. You can start, Philip.
And now.
Yes.
So, okay. We are talking about the document that recommend dosimetries, specific dosimetry for wide cone beam CT scanners. So it's necessary to understand that actually the method recommended is a kind of coverage factor that you use the standard method with the PMMA phantom with the classic equation, and then you need to perform other two measurements in air. So you need to stepping ionized pencil type ionized chamber
Please
through the
your slide. We can see
no.
the slides, the presentation. We can't see.
Oh my God. For me, it's everything okay. So I will try to close everything and open again. Share screen.
Yes. Full screen, please.
Okay, now?
Yes, push where the cursor is. that symbol?
Now it's okay? I can continue?
Yes. Push where is the cursor, please. Here. I am showing you.
Ah, ok. Approve.
Felipe, você já tinha
Oi.
colocado na grande, né? Já estava no modo de apresentação, agora já não está mais. Teve um momento um pouco antes de você começar aí que estava. Tenta de novo, por favor.
É estranho porque eu saí e entrei de novo para mim fica parecendo que está tudo ok. Eu não entendo por que para
Em cima,
as outras pessoas não está aparecendo.
olha no menu da sua tela, está escrito página inicial, tá vendo?
Sim.
Viu? Em cima dele tem um íconezinho. É o último ícone. Tem salvar, desfazer alguma coisa, o último. Aperta esse.
Eu acho que estão tentando me ajudar aqui, na verdade, por isso que eu não estou conseguindo mexer ao mesmo tempo. Eu acho que
Então, espera. Ok, vai lá. Ela estava tentando te mostrar qual que era.
eu acho
Aperta
que
aí.
eu acho que ela que tá comandando o cursor aqui agora.
Ela parou aqui agora, deve estar dando um delay, mas vai. Tenta agora, por favor. Vamos ver.
Vamos lá. Parar compartilhamento. Vou
Ação em full.
compartilhar de novo.
E na hora que você for compartilhar a tela, ele vai perguntar qual tela que você quer compartilhar. Aí você escolhe a que está maior. Tenta assim, vai lá. Vamos lá. Isso.
Teoricamente, essa que eu escolhi é a maior.
Ah, tá. Agora vai lá em cima do página inicial, e clica naquele ícone que eu te mostrei, que eu te falei antes. Página inicial
Agora
na
eu
esquerda.
não tô vendo. Agora eu não tô vendo. Agora eu não tô vendo página inicial. Tem New Share, novo compartilhamento.
Não. Página inicial é no menu em cima, do seu lado esquerdo. Você tá. É porque ele tá na tela grande, engraçado. Parece que ele tá tentando.
E agora? Ainda não tá aparecendo?
Não, tem o WhatsApp dele. Me fala o seu número de WhatsApp, Felipe, que eu vou passar para ela.
21.
Peraí, só um minutinho. Deixa eu anotar para você. Ah, você tem o WhatsApp dele? Ah, tá. Ela vai te mandar aí. Peraí. A tela. Mas ele está tentando clicar. He cannot reach this button. It's not available for him. I don't know why. Tenta de novo, Felipe, por favor. É. Otherwise, it would be too long. Felipe. Acho que ele saiu.
Sim. Que presenta?
Ok. Felipe, tá aí? Felipe? Ah, tá. Tá entrando de novo. Ok. Felipe, consegue me ouvir? Ele estava tentando. Sim, Felipe? Ah, o dele tá mudo.
Oi,
Agora.
Thelma.
Isso. E aqui, vamos tentar de novo. Se não der, vamos apresentar do jeito que tá aí, tá bom?
Tá, de qualquer forma, eu fechei tudo, saí, desloguei e loguei de novo. Se não for, deve ser algum problema no meu computador.
Tudo bem. Então, pode compartilhar do jeito que ficar aí, você vai. Então, vamos tentar.
Então,
Eu
é
te falo aqui.
share screen, certo?
Isso.
Se você quiser, eu posso fazer uma videochamada para você ver aqui. Você prefere?
Não, vamos lá, senão vai passar muito tempo.
Tá, share screen. Tá dizendo que eu estou desabilitado para compartilhar.
Desabilitado para compartilhar? Ok, you have to give him permission. Peraí. Pronto, vai. Tenta de novo, por favor.
Tá. Então, aí você prefere que eu compartilhe a minha tela ou eu tente de novo o arquivo?
Não, não, pode compartilhar, compartilha.
A
Compartilha
tela,
a
né?
tela.
Tá. Pronto.
Aí. Aí.
Aí agora eu vou abrir a apresentação no PowerPoint.
Ah, tá. Ok. Ah, tá. Felipe, elas fizeram uma outra coisa aqui. Elas abriram o seu PowerPoint, não é isso? Ou não? Oh, sorry. You open it here and you control it from here or? Não, Felipe, tá escutando?
Tô sim.
Pode mandar bala, é isso aí mesmo, tá ótimo. Obrigado.
E agora, foi?
Perfect. You can start, Philip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, returning, we are talking about the dosimetric methodology for wide cone beam CT scanners that recommended by IAEA. And actually, we have a kind of coverage factor. So we need to perform the standard dosimetry using the PMMA cylindrical phantoms. And then we need to perform two dosimetries in air. So first, I performed the two steps through the beam, and then three steps. And the CT scanner that we studied was a Achillean 1 Vision Edition, launched in 2012 by Canon Medical Systems. And we have inside an important equipment that is a bow tie filter. And we can see a kind of simulation about this issue. So the function of the bow tie filter is maintains the highest radiation intensity in the thickness part of the structure of the patient, and the lowest radiation intensity in the peripheral regions of the same patient. And actually, in specific in Achillean 1 Vision Edition, we have 5 size for bow tie filter: extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And for perform the dosimetry quantity of weighted CTDI, we need to use the head phantom that have 160 millimeters of diameter. For smallest bow tie filters, I'm talking about extra small, small, and medium. And for the others, large and extra large, it's necessary to use 320 millimeters diameter body phantom. And this guideline was provided by Canon in a report from STUK, that is a radiation and nuclear safety authority in Finland. So in this work, I use 80 kV, 100 kV, 120 kV, and 135 kV. But as we don't have too much time to present this work, I will only show 80 kV and 100 kV. that basically is a range KV for pediatric patients. And the other parts of the protocol that I used, 100 MA, 1 second tube rotation, no tube movement, and dose modulation turn off. Talking about the reference collimation and desired collimation that you use for in-air dosimetry, I used 40 millimeters for the reference collimation, 160 millimeters collimation for the desired collimation. So here we have the main equation of this recommended methodology. So as I said, the weighted CTDI that represents the classic, the standard dosimetry, represents this first part of the equation, CTDI 100 ref. That means reference. So you need to use the reference collimation for this part of the equation. And the other part that represents a coverage factor, I mean, in-air dosimetry, you use in the top the desired collimation, and in the bottom the reference collimation. In other words, 160 millimeters, 160 millimeters, and 40 millimeters. So here I show the dosimetry in air, and then, sorry, actually I missed this part. Here I showed the dosimetry in phantom, both head and body phantom. Then dosimetry in air with the classic ionized chamber, Pence type ionized chamber, I mean 100 millimeters. And in this other part of the work, for the validation purpose, I used 300 millimeters Pence type ionization chamber to perform a one-step method. So here, first, with the Pence type ionization chamber, we have 2 steps and 3 steps, and then with this bigger Pence type ionization chamber, we have a one-step method. So it's necessary to pay attention about the uncertainty, because when reporting the result of the measurement, it's obligatory that some quantitative indication of the quality of the result be given in order to evaluate its reliability. In other words, it's necessary to analyze and express this uncertainty. So we have two kinds of evaluation uncertainty. You can evaluate the type A and type B. So type A talking about implementing a statistical analysis method to evaluate the values obtained under defined measurement conditions. And we have type B evaluation. That means characterized by the use of the manufacturer's manual, practical experience regarding instruments performance, and the most important, calibration certificate. We can use this kind of stuff as a reference. So this work I'm to evaluate the uncertainty associated with the dosimetric methodology recommended for this kind of CT technology. investigate the role played by multi-filter and tube voltage. So for 80 kV, we have two trends that we can see in this figure. Actually, we have equal values for multi SS and S, and equal values for multi M, L, and LL. Talking about the 100 kV, we have the same situation. I mean, the trend, same values for SS and S filter, or multi-filter, and M, and in the case of M, L, and LL, we have the same values. So when we focus on uncertainty analysis, we can see that low values for uncertain components arising from the CTDI air dosimetries, 160, that highlight the feasibility of carrying out the STEP methodology in wide cone beam CT. Another point is that higher values for uncertain components arising from CTDI, weighted CTDI dosimeters is a consequence mainly of the fact that there is no fixed initial position when you start each exposure practice. And another point that we can see is that the recommended tolerance for uncertainty that we have as a reference in AAPM and IFOM publication is up to that for all results. I mean, all the multi-filter size, this tolerance level, it's accomplished. And for the 100 kV, we observed the same situation and the same situation about the recommended tolerance too. So I would like to present my conclusions. The dosimetry methodology recommended by IAEA proved to be consistent from the analysis of all uncertain components for each setup, multi-filter size, tube voltage value, and applying the coverage factor in uncertain study, the agreement in general of the values of expanded uncertainty with 20% tolerance level recommended was demonstrated. So I would like to say thank you very much. That's all. Hello? Hello?
Thanks, Philip, for your presentation. Now
Oh,
we're
thank you very
going
much.
to go to the time for lunch. Thanks to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
See you. We are going to see you at 1:30 p.m. Thanks to everyone. See you at 1:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Felipe, can you share? Okay.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.